One of my favorite movies of all time is the 1994 classic The Lion King. From the animation to the performances to the musical numbers, everything just blends so well together. At the time that I'm filming this video, I actually rewatched The Lion King this morning. And on my letterbox review, I actually said if I could give it a 6 star, I would. After watching the 1994 classic, I decided to go ahead and watch the 2019 version. Now, fun fact, I actually did a short review of the 2019 version of The Lion King a couple of years ago, and I didn't like it. Not really, and it frustrated me in a lot of ways. But I decided to give it another chance this time. Maybe there are things that won't frustrate me as much. And I guess there were one or two things that I actually liked about the 2019 version. I don't think that it's as bad as I thought it was, but it's still not a great movie. I wanted to go into a contrasting video talking about 1994 and 2019, but then I thought to myself, I don't want to be too negative on this channel. So we're going to do things slightly differently. I'm going to be listing some aspects that I really liked in the 1994 version of The Lion King. Then I'm going to be comparing those aspects that I really enjoyed in the original to the 2019 version, how the 2019 version presents it, and my opinions on that. I also will be talking about some aspects that I actually liked about the 2019 version, as I don't want to be 100% negative on it. Also, please be aware that I'm not going to mention every single thing that I like about The Lion King 1994, as we will be here the whole day and this video will go on to be about 6 hours. Instead, I have just summarized a few aspects that I really liked from the film and decided to talk about those aspects today while comparing them to the 2019 version of The Lion King. At the end of the day, the 1994 version just stands out to me more, and it's the version that I will always keep on rewatching. But before we go into the nitty-gritty, I'd just like to introduce or reintroduce myself. Hi, I'm Sassycritic. I talk about films, television shows, and everything around it. So if that's your thing, hop on for the ride. And what a ride it is, because today we're going to be talking about The Lion King, both the 1994 version and the 2019 version. If you are someone who likes long film discussions and short film reviews, this is the channel for you, and you should actually subscribe. Turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss a video, like this video if you like, and comment below what you think of the 1994 and the 2019 versions of The Lion King. But I think we've taken a bit too long in the intro. Let's talk The Lion King 1994. The first aspect that I really enjoyed about the 1994 version of The Lion King is the opening. It is absolutely stunning. The bright colors, the bright yellows, oranges, and reds as the sun rises over the savannah. That accompanied by Lebo M's voice as he sings The Circle of Life. What I really like about this is the fact that the visuals on its own is really strong. And Lebo M's voice singing The Circle of Life is also really strong. But in a lot of ways, Lebo M singing The Circle of Life enhances the visuals of the sunrise over the savannah. And in a lot of ways, the sunrise over the savannah enhances Lebo M's performance of The Circle of Life. It's absolutely stunning. It's breathtaking. Not only that, but also as we see the animals descending over the savannah to go and see the birth of Simba, the birth of their future king. It's stunning, it's breathtaking. I love how we get to see the different animals, how bright it is, how the animation is just done so well. As Rafiki comes out of Pride Rock and carries Simba, it is breathtaking. It's one of the best scenes in the entire film. And it's probably my favorite opening when it comes to a movie. The other being the opening to Hairspray. But I think in a lot of ways, the opening to Hairspray isn't as amazing and breathtaking as the opening to the 1994 version opening of The Lion King. How does this contrast to the 2019 version of The Lion King? It's not good at all. Like, the singing is stunning. The singing is beautiful. I think the 2019 version of the Circle of Life is really good. But in terms of the visuals, or at least with the sun, not so great. For one thing, it's not all that bright. And I know this sounds like I'm nitpicking, but when you have an iconic opening as the 1994 version of The Lion King, you have really big shoes to fill. But how does the rest of the animation look in this movie? And yes, the 2019 version of The Lion King is animated. Well, for starters, it's actually really good. The animals look realistic. I know John Favreau was aiming for this movie to look really realistic and to look documentary like, and I think in those aspects he really did achieve it. There are times in this movie when I have to literally remind myself, like, yeah, that's an animated lion. That's an animated zebra. So I think in that aspect, that is done really great. But what about the part where Rafiki takes Simba out? This is where the 2019 version of The Lion King really has its downfall. Why? Because for one thing, it does not look all that great. Okay, let's backtrack a bit. Let's talk about the part where Mufasa and Sarabi are giving their cub Simba to Rafiki to present to the rest of the animal kingdom. In the 2019 version of The Lion King, it just looks like they're giving away their cub to Rafiki to present to the kingdom. It doesn't even look like he's all that important. And then when Rafiki presents Simba to the rest of the kingdom, while we do get to see the animals be all excited for him, when it gets to the part where they are bowing down to Simba, welcoming and respecting their future king, it looks very half-assed. Like, their heads go down, but they go halfway down and not all the way down, which is questionable at best. I didn't expect for them to do like a over-the-top shot-for-shot remake, even though in a lot of ways the opening just proves that the movie is in a lot of ways a shot-for-shot remake. But it's not that great if you're going to be animating animals bowing down to Simba. But yeah, the 2019 opening of The Lion King, not so great. The next aspect that I really liked about the 1994 version is Mufasa. I have to backtrack back to 2004 when I was a mere 5 years old and I was watching The Lion King for the very first time. I enjoyed it. But the one aspect that it really stood out to me at the time, besides Hakuna Matata, was James Earl Jones as Mufasa. I remember feeling so intimidated by this character, but not in a bad way. James Earl Jones had this big booming voice that really suited well for Mufasa in the 1994 version. You could really tell he was a lion that really wanted to protect his pride, but he also prioritized his family and, more importantly, Simba. He was a brave lion, but was also scared sometimes. And in my opinion, Mufasa is one of the best characters in an animated film that I have ever seen. He's voiced by James Earl Jones, and as I said, his voice is just really booming when it needs to, and loving when it needs to. There's this moment in The Lion King where Mufasa and Simba are talking, sort of having a heart to heart, because Simba went to the elephant graveyard where him and Nala were almost unalived. He was trying to reach out to Simba and tell him, look, what you and Nala did was wrong. But even after a while, Mufasa just gives in and is being loving to his son. And I just love the dynamic in this particular scene. And James Earl Jones does an amazing job in the 1994 version of The Lion King. So, how does this contrast to the 2019 version? Well, for one thing, they brought back James Earl Jones to play Mufasa. And I do have to admit, when they did this, I got really excited. I really liked James Earl Jones in the 1994 version and even got intimidated by his booming voice. Unfortunately, James Earl Jones in the 2019 version was not the greatest choice that they made. Don't get me wrong, I really like James Earl Jones, as he's a really good actor and voice actor alike. But it's very clear that he was a bit too old for the role of Mufasa in the 2019 version of The Lion King. He didn't sound as intimidating, or his voice wasn't as booming as it was before. Think of the scene where Mufasa asks Scar, "Is this a challenge?" In the 1994 version, there's this roar in his voice. It's booming, it's loud. We get the complexity of Mufasa and how he feels about his brother Scar. He's really frustrated with the fact that his brother didn't come to see his son's ceremony. But you can also kind of hear the fact that Mufasa still loves his brother. And that is all in the complexity and the sound and the tone of James Earl Jones' performance. And in the 2019 version of The Lion King, when Mufasa says, "Is this a challenge?" my very first reaction was, they need to do a retake. Again, like I would like to say, I really like James Earl Jones, and he's a really good actor and voice actor. But he was just not that great in the 2019 version of The Lion King. There were a lot of times where I felt like they could have done a retake. Maybe they could have enhanced his voice to make it sound better. Maybe they could have mixed in the 1994 version of his voice in with the 2019 version. I don't know how that would sound or how that would work, but maybe it would have been better. But ultimately, when it came to Mufasa's portrayal, I prefer the 1994 version. The next aspect of The Lion King 1994 that I really liked is be prepared. Let me get one thing straight. Be prepared is crucial to the overall story of The Lion King. We get to see Scar's true feelings towards Simba, his brother, and the whole of the Pride Lands. We also get to see what he's planning on doing to Simba and to Mufasa. It also acts as a foreshadow to what is going to happen for the rest of the film from his perspective. But what I would say is really important are the colors. Notice that when you watch The Lion King and you get to the part where Be Prepared is sung, we get to see green, then yellow, then red, then purple. These colors weren't just put there to make the movie look nice, even though it really works to the movie's advantage. Those colors were put there for a purpose. So, what do each of these colors mean, and how does it advance the story? First up is green. Green represents jealousy, and we already know that Scar is jealous of Simba. He's jealous of what Simba represents. Simba is going to be the next king of the Pride Lands, not Scar. So, what does he have to do? He has to get rid of Simba. The next color that shows up is yellow. Now, yellow represents optimism. So, this naturally means that Scar is optimistic that his plan is going to work. He is positive that he is going to be able to get rid of Mufasa and Simba. The next color that we see is red. Red represents danger. And we already know that Scar is dangerous. And we saw this earlier on in the film. First off, he decided not to attend his nephew's birth ceremony. The next scene in which we see that he's actually dangerous is when it's revealed earlier on in the film that Scar is actually having an ally with the hyenas. This is actually a twist in the film. Before that point, us as the audience assumes that the hyenas are working on their own, and Scar is just a jealous uncle. But the scene where the hyenas and Scar talk, where Scar says that he practically gave Simba and Nala to them to attack, reveals to the audience that Scar was an ally of the hyenas more than he is to his own kind, which really shows how dangerous he is. Another aspect of the film which really proves that Scar is dangerous is literally the scene after with the stampede scene. Scar is one of those Disney villains where he doesn't want to get his paws dirty. He instead will send the hyenas to do all the dirty work while his hands, paws stay clean. The final color that we get to see in the sequence is purple. And I cannot emphasize how important it is that we see the color purple at the end of Be Prepared. Why? Because color is a representation of wealth and royalty. At this particular point of the song, Scar sees himself as king. Simba and Mufasa are still alive, but he sees himself as king. I also say that this is important because we also get to see how he sees himself in contrast to the hyenas. He is going to be king, but notice how he's on top of a rock while the hyenas are below him. It literally represents how Scar sees himself above everyone else, including his allies, the hyenas. And we also get to see this later down the line in the movie. So the fact that we get to see 4 different emotions in one song is crucial, and it really shows you how important Be Prepared is in the grand scheme of the story of The Lion King. The fact that Scar goes from being a jealous uncle to being optimistic that his plan is going to go well, to one that shows how dangerous he is, to one that really shows himself as king, is really great representation in this particular part of the story. So how does this contrast to the 2019 version of The Lion King? Well, let's talk about Scar for a bit. When we see Scar interacting with the hyenas, they actually not aligned with each other. Scar actually approaches the hyenas, which is led by Shenzi, and he's basically saying, let's align ourselves with each other and let the hyenas attack Simba. This isn't necessarily a bad change in the movie. I actually found it to be an interesting one. But was it necessary? I think that's very debatable. Well, how is the song Be Prepared performed in the 2019 version of The Lion King? Well, for one thing, it's cut in half. I did not expect that. Why would they cut Be Prepared in half? I literally explained why Be Prepared was an important aspect in The Lion King. So cutting the song in half and let it be talk sung instead of full-on performance, it's to the film's disadvantage. Another thing is they took away the 4 colors. The colors that I explained earlier on, which I get it that they can't really do that because Jon Favreau wanted to be realistic. But they could have at least tried to provoke that emotion, or at least try and communicate how Scar is feeling about the situation. And in my opinion, we don't really get to see that in the scene, which does kind of come down to the facial expressions that we see in The Lion King 2019. Now that I mentioned it, let's talk about the facial expressions that we see in The Lion King 2019. The facial expressions really need to be worked on. It's not good. I was looking at the stampede scene where Simba is supposed to be grieving his father, Mufasa, and his face just looks blank. He doesn't look scared or confused or sad like we see in the 1994 version. His face is blank. And I just don't get how that is supposed to make me feel those emotions as an audience member when he doesn't really convey his emotions. I would also just like to say the voice actor for Simba did a fine job. I don't think this is his fault, clearly. But when it came down to the animation of that particular scene, like Simba's faces did not align well with what he was saying. That can get confusing when it comes to conveying what your characters are feeling to the audience. When we watch a movie, we really like to see expressive characters. The facial expressions is what helps convey those emotions. So when we watch that scene in the 2019 version of The Lion King and Simba does not look all that emotional, how am I, as the audience, supposed to feel? I clearly know how I'm supposed to feel in the 1994 version. I'm supposed to feel sad, scared for Simba. What is going to happen to him now that his father died? Does this mean he's going to be king immediately? We can feel those emotions because we see how scared Simba is. We see how sad he is. He's grieving his dad, and at the same time, he feels like it's his fault. That is why that scene in The Lion King is done so well. But in the 2019 version, we don't really get all that. So, going back to Be Prepared in the 2019 version, we know that they took away the colors, which allows the audience to interpret how Scar is feeling throughout the musical number. So, does Scar express himself at least through his facial expressions? Not really. I can't tell if Scar is angry. He kind of just has this scrunched up face in that scene, and I don't know if that is supposed to mean that he's angry, but yeah, I guess it's supposed to show that he's evil and angry and he's ready to fight. But it's not all that convincing. This is why the Be Prepared scene in the 1994 version of The Lion King is just one of my favorite. And I would just like to make it very clear, Be Prepared is not my favorite song in The Lion King. That clearly goes to Hakuna Matata and The Circle of Life. But I do feel that Be Prepared is really important. And I think cutting it in half, taking away the important colors, making it dark, and showing lack of expression from Scar's side is to the film's disadvantage. Another aspect that I really enjoyed about the 1994 version of The Lion King is Nala. Nala is probably my favorite character in the film. She is Simba's best friend. She acts as a companion to him. And I honestly love the fact that she cringes when Zazu says that the two of them have to get married one day because of tradition. And it's crazy. But anyway, I love Nala. I love how she also wants to go along with Simba's plan, distracting Zazu, and then going to the elephant graveyard with him. In fact, you can even argue that Nala is just as brave or even more adventurous than Simba. Because when Simba tells his mother Sarabi that he's going to the watering hole, like, Nala's reaction to that is literally like, the watering hole, like, that's so dumb, and then it's like, oh no, just trust me on this, we're going somewhere else. So it's really great to see Nala in that light. But what I also like is her change and growth as we see her grown in the reuniting scene with Simba. So when she reunites with Simba, she is surprised. She's shocked that Simba is alive, but at the same time, she's so happy, relieved that she is reunited with her best friend. She knows that Simba has to go back to claim the throne. But right now, in that moment, she's processing everything. Simba is alive. She can be reunited with her best friend. And we see all this through the sequence of Can You Feel the Love Tonight? At the end of that song sequence, we see that Nala really wants to get Simba back to the pride, but Simba is like, no, you need to stay here with me, and she says no, she has a bigger responsibility. You see, that's what I like about Nala. She's so different than when she's a cub, and she's different to Simba in when they are like grown lions. Simba is supposed to be taking responsibility as king, but chooses not to, and Nala literally does not have a choice when it comes to the responsibility of the pride. We know that she was sent out to go and find food because all the animals have left the Pride Lands, and that's what led her to the same area as Timon, Pumbaa, and Simba. So she can't avoid responsibility. She doesn't have that, I guess, advantage as Simba. And on the other hand, when it comes to Simba not wanting to go back to the Pride Lands, we know that he thinks that he killed Mufasa. So for him, it's also a difficult decision, even though in the movie it's like, nah, this is the better life. But I love how it all plays out. I also love how their friendship turns into a romance. I find it really sweet, and honestly, I find Simba and Nala to be a cute couple. So, how does this change in the 2019 version of The Lion King? Well, for one thing, Nala is not the same as she was in the 1994 version. Now, little changes in personality isn't a bad thing, as when you do a remake, you don't want it to be a copy and paste. But you have to do some changes that would make it better, or at least entertaining and meaningful to the audience. And with Nala, she's the same as a cub as she is a grown lion. Okay, we're gonna talk about this. So, yes, she's still friends with Simba when she's a cub, and the two of them go to the elephant graveyard. But this time when they go to the elephant graveyard, she tells Simba that maybe they need to go back home. Okay. In the 1994 version, we know that once they got to the elephant graveyard, Nala was just as excited as Simba. Just as curious and just as adventurous. So why the change in the 2019 version? Honestly, I don't even know the answer to that. Okay, so how is Nala when she is older? The same. She is the same. Yes, she's reuniting herself with Simba, and that's a great thing, obviously. But her focus is on getting back to the pride, and there's no process of her emotions when she's reunited with Simba. It's sort of like, hi Simba, and they're excited to see each other, which is a plus, but as soon as that happens, it's like, let's go back to the pride, and it's so forceful. It's like she was able to process all that emotion within a second. Like, it didn't make sense to me. If you watch that scene back to back, like the 1994 version with that scene and the 2019 version with that scene, and it looks very identical, but the 2019 version, it just feels so rushed, which is so weird because the 2019 version of The Lion King is about 30 minutes longer than the 1994 version. I guess Jon Favreau really wanted to focus on a spider and a rat and some dung beetle carrying a bit of mane from Simba. I hated the fact that Nala stayed the same and they didn't add anything to it. She's just a strong individual lioness. And there's nothing wrong with having a strong female lead. Far from it. But when there's nothing added to that character that makes it entertaining or meaningful, what are we left with? Let's look at the contrast between Simba in the 2019 version of The Lion King. Simba, when he's a cub, he's curious. He wants to know about the Pride Lands. He's excited to be king, just like he was in the 1994 version. And then when he gets older, when he's with Timon and Pumbaa, his mind shifts. He no longer wants to be king. He wants to relax. He wants to be away from the Pride Lands. And at the back of his head, he knows that, well, he's responsible for Mufasa's death. So why does Simba get the advantage of changing and growing while Nala does not? I don't even know the answer to that, but the best that I can come up with is the fact that Simba is the character that we see for the majority of the movie, his perspective. And I guess that's reason enough not to develop Nala into this really great fleshed out character. What was wrong with having Nala be this adventurous young cub who wanted to go to the elephant graveyard as much as Simba did? Why did she have to be some sort of downer to a certain extent of wanting to get Simba back to the Pride Lands? Is it because they really just wanted to hammer in that she's a responsible young lioness? I honestly don't know. Nala from the 1994 version is my favorite character because her character changes and grows in the movie. Even though we don't see that development ourselves because the film focuses on Simba. But when we see her as a grown lioness, taking responsibility for the pride, hunting for them, reuniting with her best friend, and processing all of those emotions, it's so much better than the 2019 version. The final aspect that we're going to be talking about in the 1994 version of The Lion King is the message. We all know what scene I'm talking about. The scene where Rafiki takes his stick, hits Simba on the head, and tells him the message: the past can hurt, but you can either run from it or learn from it. This is an important message in the film. It not only can be applied to young children, but also to adults. And yes, 5-year-old me wouldn't have been able to absorb that message, but 25-year-old me would have. In fact, when I rewatched the movie and I saw that scene, I was touched. I was like, this message stands out to today. It's an important part of the movie because Simba realizes that he can no longer run from his past. Now, keeping in mind, Simba still thinks that he was the one that killed Mufasa. But at this point, he realizes he can't run away from that problem. He has to learn from it. It's also the moment that encourages him to go back to the pride. It's a crucial moment in the film, not just for the characters, but also the audience. It's my favorite scene in the movie, and you'll see me putting it up on my WhatsApp status or my Instagram because it's one of my favorite scenes from the movie. So how does this change in the 2019 version of The Lion King? Well, they took away the scene where Rafiki hits Simba over the head and, tells him the message. And I'm wondering, why would they do that? If the message is not just as important to the main character as it is to the audience, young and old, why would you take it out? Did they not like the fact that Rafiki hit Simba on the head? Did they think that was too violent? That doesn't make sense to me because we had like a whole stampede scene that unalived the main character. So that's not it. Why would they take away the scene? And also, if it was because Simba got hit on the head by Rafiki with his stick, then why couldn't they just not do that and find a different way to bring in the message verbally? It doesn't make sense to me, to be honest. Oh, and by the way, when it comes to Rafiki's stick, we don't see it until like the last few moments when they're defeating Scar, and it's like, why? I know I said changes are good, but changes can only be successful if they add something to it and they make it meaningful or at least entertaining for the audience. Taking out the scene where Rafiki is telling Simba the message, an important one at that, fine. On paper, I guess it works. But they needed to add something to it so that the audience and Simba can get the message clearly. And in my eyes, the 2019 version does not deliver the message of the film so clearly, easily, or in a way for us as the audience to understand. So I just want to say this and make it very clear. The 2019 version of The Lion King is not good, but not every aspect of that film is terrible. For one thing, the technology is really great, and the animals look very realistic. There are times in the movie where Africa actually looks good. Not all the time, but there are moments. At the end of the day, myself and many others are going to choose to re-watch the 1994 version of The Lion King because of how well all of these aspects just blend together. The animation, the performances, the music, the message, all just culminate well in the 1994 version of The Lion King. So, while I will go onto Disney Plus wanting to get nostalgic, I'm going to be forever choosing the 1994 version of The Lion King, while the 2019 version will just be left on my subscription. I also just want to close off by saying that if you are someone who is a big fan of the 2019 version of The Lion King, I think that's 100% fine. You are, of course, entitled to your own opinion. The reasons why I didn't like The Lion King 2019 could be the exact same reasons why you do. And I think that is perfectly fine. You are entitled to your opinion, as I am entitled to mine. And that is all that we have for today, but thank you so much for joining me along in this journey. I had a ton of fun making this video. This was not one of those planned out videos. I actually just decided to do this video 15 minutes after watching the 1994 version of The Lion King for like the 100th time. And I honestly thought to myself, yeah, let's just talk about the 1994 version and compare what I like to the 2019 version of The Lion King. So I literally was watching both movies back to back, which was an interesting thing to do. If you're someone who loves long film discussions, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, as this would be the channel for you. Also be sure to like the video and comment down below what you think of the 1994 and the 2019 versions of The Lion King. Also, I would just like to say that we have a Sassycritic 107 email. So if you are someone that has any movie requests, video requests, or you just want to say hi, or you're a content creator who wants to do a possible collaboration, sassycritic107@gmail.com is the email that you can send me an email to. But thank you so much, every single one of you. I really do appreciate you guys watching this video. And until next time, I will see you in the next one. Bye!